Yeah.
How did Reza go? Was Reza nervous? He was.
No, he was alright.
Nervous.
He was good.
Okay,
He was
go.
So I guess we'll start with, do you remember the coaching days?
Yeah.
So most people won't remember that you were actually a coach in 2014 you started.
Soccer ex-prodigy.
What's your memories? That was the start of the journey, wasn't it?
My memories. Diner! Do you remember?
He's probably at 18 now.
Really?
He's had a kid.
Yeah, he was Chinese.
Broadbeach, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he was Broadbeach, and he just did not have the care in the world. This little, the cutest kid I've ever seen. And he just had no fear, no care, he did not listen. And like, we'd be playing the game, I'd turn around and he'd be 100 metres away on top of the goal. Just swinging up a post.
It was a baptism of fire, wasn't it? Straight in.
Yeah.
60 kids on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
We're still doing that at Broadie as well.
Do you remember I did a reverse parallel in my 1999 Commodore, and I hit the crossing lady as she puts signs out.
Yeah. Pop lady.
Took it out. All the parents were there. Justin's going.
Like he can just creep in. He's 6'8".
For a year after that, I drove around with it duct tape.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Good memories, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good because you were just fresh back from England then, weren't you?
Yeah, 20.
Weren't really sure what you were doing.
No.
Yeah, I did. So tell us a little bit about your footballing journey, how you got into it, and where you played as a junior.
Well, I grew up in Ireland. I started when I was about 4 or 5, and are we talking about this far back, all the way?
Yeah.
I remember because I was, believe it or not, I was pretty shy growing up. And my brother went down to train. He was at the end of my granny and granddad's house at the field, and I didn't want to go, and then he came back, and then one day I was like, oh, maybe I'll go, and I remember standing next to the post, and then the session went by, I didn't do anything, and then the next time I got in, and then I just loved it.
And where was that? That was in Ireland?
Yeah, that was in Ireland, yeah. Didn't get taught how to kick a ball, so no one in my family played. So I toe poked it until I was about 10.
Until you were 10?
Yeah, still now.
Until you're 25?
Yeah. So, and then came here when I was 11. And then I lived in Madraba, so I played for Madraba. And it's weird, like, it's funny, when you look back and you think things have all fallen into place. Like, we wouldn't have known coming from over there what the ins and outs. We just went down and trialled, and then back then it was like you trialled and they put you in either Div 3, Div 2 or Div 1. So obviously when being Div 1, I scraped into the Div 1 team, and then that team ended up, did they still do the cup?
The JPL?
No, the cup in September.
Oh, the Champions Cup. Yeah, they still do.
Yeah,
Got to the final in that. We won the Kanga Cup that year. We won the under 11s. Like, we just were unbeaten.
Yeah.
It was a really good team. Who was in that team? There was some players in there now that were still in that team. Yeah.
And what was the big difference? Can you remember coming straight from Ireland to Madraba? Was there anything that stuck out?
Oh, just that in Ireland, that's all we did. And you would obviously know it's the same. Like, we'd play football before school. If we didn't have a ball, we'd use like a bottle cap or a bottle, and we'd go searching for one.
Yeah.
We'd play at lunch. We'd play after school. We'd play at night after dinner.
Yeah.
We'd always train. And then coming here, the shock of then having people in, let's say, school, for instance, playing AFL, playing rugby, and then all of a sudden my playing time with the football went from how many hours a week to pretty much nothing, unless I was at training, which was only like twice a week in under 11s.
So
that was a big culture shock. And then even players on the team at that age were playing other sports like cricket and AFL. It was really hard for me to process. And my mum was trying to get me into AFL.
Really?
Because of like the Gaelic football connection, because I played that back in Ireland. But I just couldn't process doing two
It's
sports.
crazy. Well, we see it now, don't we? The kids at Burley, they come down for soccer training with a rugby ball. So that either side of their session, it's not like back in the UK where they're
That's why it's
playing.
going to be so hard to generate good players in Australia, particularly on the Gold Coast, because there's so many distractions.
So many options. Yeah.
When every other country in the world is all they do, as I said, that's Ireland, that's not even a great footballing country. Imagine England, then all the other countries, South America, Africa.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy, isn't it? So after Madraba, where did you go?
well, then The Gold Coast, it was called the Rebel Sports League. So like the Rep League was brought in 2008. So I played up a year then in 2007, because then that team that I was in under 11s, the coach left, they had a falling out, and they created like a super team on the Gold Coast for under 12s, like all the best players on the coast. And Nico was in that team.
Really?
Yeah.
What,
all
this
the
was
best
the rep
players.
team, or was this just
No, it was just another team,
training?
but they went to Robina, so all the best players went there, like Blake Currency went there, Ben Liffin might have even went there as well.
Star-studded.
Yeah, but then I stayed with Reece Saunders.
Oh, did you?
We stayed and we played up in under 13s, so up a year, and then that was probably then, I probably took a step back that year, I reckon, because didn't have any friends in the team, was a year younger, didn't get much of the ball, and it was probably just one of those years you just saw through. And then after that, the next year, they brought in that rep league, so you went from playing for a club to then playing for a rep team full time if you got in.
Yeah, and you made it, did you?
Well, I just scraped in. I got lucky, like I wasn't really, there was like a bit of a gap from when I left Ireland to when I came to Australia in terms of the quality. I don't know what it was, if it was like physicality, nervous, I was slow, a bit chubby, and I got lucky. I don't know if like David Thompson was a rep coach in 2007 under 12. We got close, and then he just must have seen some little bit of maybe like skill, but not the body to match even as a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So then I started running with him, I swear to God, 3 mornings a week, every week for 4 years.
How old was you?
I was 11.
Wow.
So that's the thing, like looking back, like I had to work so much harder at that age than anyone else.
It's a young age to be just running.
Well, because I just remember Reece, for instance, like he was, like everything he touched turned to goal, score every goal. Like it was like you didn't have to do anything, you know what I mean? Then for me, was there, but I just had to work harder to get it. And then I was scraping into the teams. I wasn't going to get picked in the rep team in under 13s for that league, but David was the coach.
Yeah.
And he kind of, I was like bottom, got in. All my mates got picked for state that year, the Queensland team. I didn't.
Yeah.
I was obviously heartbroken with that. But I don't know what happened. It was like 2 years of then the running and just all that extra work. And then almost having that, I didn't make it. I grew a little bit, got a bit stronger. And I had this attitude that I didn't care. And then all the players that didn't make it in the under 13s and the under 14s played against the state team because it was on the Gold Coast. And it's just like having, I don't know, the best I've ever played in that period.
Against the team.
Yeah, and then that confidence carried through. I ended up growing something like 25 centimeters over that summer. That was a giraffe. And then I remember Stewie Hallam was picking the under 14 team, and he was unsure, and David convinced him to put me in. And that ended up being the start of like, okay, I was turning into a good player, because that was the year I just like probably surprised everyone and went.
So what made you identify at 11 that you had those weaknesses? I think that's quite an admirable thing at that age to go, well, I'm behind someone like Reece Saunders, and instead of giving up or moaning, you've actually identified it and you've gone and worked on it. Yeah,
it was probably luck, having David identify it, and then so it would be same as any young person listening to this now and their parents telling them that they need to work on it, like listen to them. It was almost like I didn't have a choice, because my mum was forcing me to do it, and David was forcing me to do it. Yeah.
So she was honest with you?
Yeah, and so was David, but he kept saying like, I promise you, because I remember then, I'll say it like Reece, he'll probably watch it on, like he used to come down and he'd lap me. He'd train. I've been running for a year, and he'd still come down and he'd lap me twice. We used to run at Somerset Park in Madriba, and we'd do 10 laps, which was like 3 kilometers thereabouts, and he'd lap me twice, and I'd cry while I was running. I swear, David was like, "Don't worry, one day it'll happen." So then the football thing aside, I'll never forget. They came down again, did 10-kilometer run on Hardy's Road. I whooped them, and that was like, it was like all these things were happening at once. It was like, everything that he was saying and my mum, they were telling me, like, keep working, came to fruition. I could actually see it. And that was in 2009 when I was 13, 14. And I really became my own and started to push on.
So it wasn't just an overnight thing, it was 2 or 3 years?
2 or 3 years at that point, like hard graft to get there. Plus then training and making sure I was getting more, like my skills, my touch, all of that, technique. My technique's not ever been the best. I was working with what I could. And then that year was like the year that you really needed to make state. because that was when they did the big tournament down in Coffs Harbour. I don't know if they still do it, and then that's what gets you selected for the QAS or NSWIS, etc.
Yeah.
And then I ended up cemented my spot, made it that year.
Yeah.
Went down, had a stinker. So, yeah, it's a bit of
the ups and downs of junior football.
Yeah, exactly.
And what age did that take you up to?
So that was 14, 2009. Didn't get selected for QA. Ended up breaking my foot during that tournament. Didn't get selected to even trial for QS.
Yeah.
Whereas all my mates in that team did. All of them got picked, like Ben Liffin, Josh Reese, they all got in. Again, it was probably good that happened because it then almost gave me, I stopped caring as much. And I played a little bit more freer. So I played reps again the next year, but the team sucked because 6 of our best players were now at QAS.
Yeah.
And we were left with a pieced together team. Got selected for the state team again that year, but I was a shadow player. And that again was another knockback, but it was almost like I didn't care. The girl came into the equation that year as well, so like I had a bit of distraction.
Yeah.
It was almost good for me not to get too disheartened by not getting selected at that point. Even though it's your entire world's depending on it.
Did you feel like that was what you wanted to do, that you wanted to be a footballer?
Wanted to be a footballer, but it was just, I just realised that you can't control everything. I'd made it the year before, I didn't make it this year, and I just went, just keep playing. Just, you're enjoying it, you're playing good, keep playing. And I remember the centre back got injured that they picked, so I stepped up for the entirety of the camp, like it was a 6-month process from when they picked the team to then when they went away, same as what they did the year before. And I was smashed. I was one of the best in the team. And David Bella, for whatever reason, that player recovered, another player got injured, which was centre mid, so they brought another shadow player in. I wasn't too bothered at that point, to be honest, because it costs a lot of money to go down. And if I wasn't going to get picked for QS again, there was no point in going. Fraser Hills actually was brought in to play. I'm pretty sure he was a shadow player that was brought in to play. But I actually ended up getting a trial that year with QS.
Really?
Yeah, and I remember sitting down. Matt Schmidt was trialing that year. He got ended up getting selected. Thanks, mate. He was trying there. He was a year younger, and I remember the first day, because it wasn't normal that was to happen. You're supposed to get selected, go to the tournament. Then your reward for playing good is to be put into QS to try and get a spot. And David Bellas came up to me and he said, "Do you know why you're here?" Nah. Okay. And I walked off. That's the last I heard from him.
Wow.
Ended up playing, I thought I played pretty well over that 3 weeks, but didn't get selected. But and then at that point was a bit of a crossroads because we're going into under 16s. And that kind of path to QAS A-League had dissipated a bit at that point because they'd only just started the under 16 league. But at that point, the Gold Coast Stars was created the next year, which was the Gold Coast kind of first QSL team, so NPL team since Palm Beach had it. So then we had a choice, myself and my mum, I guess, to either go into the under 16 team and stay in that system, and then potentially go into the under 19s and stay in that rep system, or to go into essentially men's football. And we decided to go to the men's side against everyone's advice. They're all saying stay. I mean, we were just sick and tired of being dictated by other people's decisions and getting so far and then getting told you're not good enough. It's like, what's the point? Let's just try a different avenue. Best thing I ever did. I was in year 11 at the time. I was 15 and had a really good pre-season.
Is this for the men's team now? At 15?
Yeah, so I was in there under 19s. So the youth team. But that was made up of players that were 16, 17, 18. I don't know, I was playing left back and I scored 4 goals against Surfers Paradise. I didn't care, I was just playing for, like, I enjoyed football. I had freedom. Because I didn't care of the outcome, I just wanted to play.
The weight off your shoulders, a massive thing.
And then 3 games in, I ended up getting called up to the first team and then I was part of that setup the entire pre-season.
Wow.
Craig Moore was the assistant coach at the time.
Yeah, there's some good players in
Really
there
good
that year
players.
as well.
Yeah,
wasn't there? Robert and Dino.
Matt Levi Houghton, they were like in their prime. John Costello when he was in his prime.
Yeah.
But that was a really good team. I think they ended up coming 3rd or 4th that year.
Yeah.
But I ended up making my state league or NPL debut that year at 15.
It's a young age.
Yeah. And at the time you don't really think it's significant, but now looking back.
Mm-hmm. If we had a 15-year-old come on for us, we'd be like, wow.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah. So, but unfortunately, it was that game that I got injured,
Right.
or that week that I ended up getting injured, and I was out for a year,
What was
which
that
knocked me back. My hip. So I had to have surgery on my hip. I cracked my socket, and there was some more cartilage, and ended up being bigger than what we first thought. And the entire year out, and I always look back on it like, what if?
Did that
If
hold
I
you
had
back
that
a little?
year. So I remember, because at that point Gold Coast United were still involved, and they're like, not to say that this would ever happen or was ever good enough, but you know, Miron Bleiberg was always at those games watching, which I thought was quite cool throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
Players were going back and forth.
Yeah.
So I do feel like that was a huge missed opportunity, but it is what it is, part of the story, right?
The injuries are all part of it.
And actually the surgeon said when I woke up, he's like, look, it's 50-50. I don't think you'll actually be able to play again, but you're not going to know until it heals and your cartilage kind of grows back.
Yeah.
You're lucky that you're young because you're still growing, your cartilage will grow. There was like a 10-cent coin piece missing.
Wow.
Probably from all the running.
Chasing after the reeds.
But yeah, I remember just doing what he told me to do, doing all the rehab. I started boxing, had a couple of fights, and then I remember one day I'm like, I miss football so much, but the surgeon said I can't play, and I'm like, I'm just going to try run. I ran, there was no pain, and that was it. Played a game the next day at school.
At 16,
went away to Townsville, played like 3 games in 3 days up there, and my hip was fine, and
back into it. Yeah, so I guess compared to most 16-year-olds, you went through a lot from starting in Ireland, moving over to the other side of the world, joining a local club, and then lots of ups and downs by the sound of it. And you must have really loved it to then go overseas.
I just remember just getting probably the pain of continuously getting told I was not good enough. Always, no matter what, even when I was doing well, there was always someone that said I wasn't enough. There's always someone. Whether it was when I was down here or whether I was perceived in a rep team, there was always someone like, no, he's not good enough, not good enough. And that hurt, the more you love football and the more you want to play, the more that hurts.
That motivated you though as well?
Yeah, just I'd always, I was an angry kid.
Yeah.
That's probably still am, but I always had so much anger and I used to just channel that, and that would obviously push me on, and that was probably a reason why behind me left. So that 2012 was that following year after I was injured. Gold Coast Stars essentially disbanded and then came back together, but it was a disastrous team. It was just a mixed match of players, and we decided to stay there in that team because I was essentially guaranteed a starting spot in the NPL at 16. Even though it was a disastrous team, I was still playing against men. I can't really remember when I was playing in 2014, you'd probably compare it to either Toowoomba or the Sunshine Coast, one of those teams that would get battered every week. But it was good for me because I was going up against men. I was playing men's football at 16.
It's young.
And there'd be a lot of fear getting on the ball, but the physicality side of things grew me heaps. Then I remember that year I did, obviously South Coast and school sports would still be a big thing here. I remember going through that. That was probably the only avenue at that point for me to do anything different than what I was doing. Got to the state championships, and I had the best tournament I've ever played in my life. It was everything I touched on, couldn't do anything wrong. Ryan Mescal was in the team, Lucky Roos. Couldn't do anything wrong. We won the tournament. We battered this team 6-0 in the semi-final, which was Brisbane, they were the favourites. I ended up getting player of the tournament in the team. And then they picked the state team, and I didn't get in. And the 2 centre backs that got picked were the 2 that we battered 6-0. And I remember getting up and I threw my kick out and this. And there was a school thing, so the teachers are going, and then my mum's doing the same, and then all the other parents are doing the same because it was just a roar. And it was at that point I was so deflated with I guess the Australian system, I wanted to give up football. I'm like, I'm over it. I can't do it anymore. It's a disaster. Like, they want a certain player, I don't fit it. They were still in that kind of Dutch system from 2006. I wasn't taught how to head a ball. I still can't head a ball. I'm a 6'5" centre back who doesn't know how to head. You know what I mean? Because during that period, like, why would you need to head when we only play on the floor? Don't kick it in the air.
Just want to play pre-football.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a centre back that didn't know how to tackle hard or head a ball. You know what I mean? That sort of stuff was just instinct.
Yeah.
And that's something I still struggle with, but I just didn't fit their mould, and we were over it. And then all of a sudden, the opportunity came up to go overseas, and decided to go.
But what up until that point kept you going? Because I think we see a lot of kids with lots of talent, lots of promise, get to teenagers, and especially on the Gold Coast, there's a million other things to do. As soon as the going gets tough, or they face some sort of adversity with defeats, or being on the bench, or if something happens, they don't get picked for a team, and that's them done. They don't play again. What kept you going? Was it you wanted to be a pro, or you just enjoyed playing?
I just loved football so much. Like, I was a fan. My bedroom up until I was 16, 17 had posters, Man United posters over the entire wall. And Man United bed sheets, you know what I mean? And that was from like when I was a child. I used to sleep in my boots, my full kit. That's before a game, I'd sleep in my boots. I'd have my shin pads on with the ankle guards, have my socks on. Yeah, and I'd be ready to go. I did that till I was like 10. And then I'd sleep with a ball. And I remember when I was 14, I was going through that period of like trying to be cool, and I tore them down, and then a week later I put them all back up again. So it's pure love for the game.
And you were a ball boy at Gold Coast United as well, weren't you?
For a reason.
Did you pick his penalty out?
It was a long way to go. I had to climb a few stairs, but I got there. Yeah, they the ball boy kids at the time were I was a big 14-year-old. They were kid size 12, I think. So I had these tiny short. And I used to sit in front of the. I used to have to sit in front of the support, like the noisy supporters of home base, and I just get peppered all game because I'm wearing these short shorts and
We'll have to get that penalty included in this video. Just for Chris.
You can have a look. I've got a photo of the bedroom as well. If you want. I swear to you.
What about your mum? Was she sort of do what you want, or?
Nah, she was hard on me. Really hard on me.
Do you think that helped?
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, you always hear about like hard dads and stuff. She'd never yell at me or tell me how to do it, but it was almost a disappointment. Or if I didn't try, she'd never, like, so if I had a bad game, for instance, I'd know about it because it'd be quiet, but she'd never yell at me or tell me I wasn't playing good. It was just if I didn't put in any effort, that's when she'd be angry. Or if I remember one game, I was in 14, 15, and I was just at the ref the entire game, and I was swearing at him, and that's probably the angriest she's ever been at me. But yeah, she was hard on me. She always rode me throughout it, and even like growing up, I suppose, then wanting to play with my friends and whatnot, she goes, no, you can't go, or if you want to do it, she goes, you got a choice. What if you break your foot? And those were sacrifices I had to make growing up. I'm glad I did it. That I couldn't do, even though I didn't go on to be anything special. But those are sort of things you have to do when you're growing up, particularly if you are in like a rep system or whatnot. You got to consider that, what you're going to break your ankle playing touch footy with your mates at 12 years old, or.
Well, those how you talk about your mum. I think they're good. Probably we'll talk about it a bit later. Stands you in good stead for later life. I know 100%. I had a similar experience playing for the school team, and my team were getting beat. I was probably early teens and playing for Swindon, the academy, so I thought, it was the bee's knees at the time. And remember, I was moping around walking, and my dad was there, and he said to me after the game, never do that again. It's just my attitude was so bad, and I remember it and thinking, yeah, you're right. I let myself down because you never know who's watching. Plus, just from a general life point of view, you can't just give up when the going gets tough and you think you're above it or whatever. So I think that's a massive
you're almost embarrassed after it as well. But that's probably better. Like, I don't know if I would have reacted the same, being hot-headed and reactive as a child, getting yelled at, to her being disappointed. Disappointment was always the worst for me anyway.
Definitely.
I think your parents are a massive part of the way you act. I remember when I was going in for my meeting at Tranmere, like the writing on the walls, I was getting released. And I remember my dad saying, do not cry in this meeting. I was only like 14, 15. Whatever you do, you don't cry. But if he would have said like, oh, don't worry, son, you know, you should have got that contract, then I could have went a different way and been a bit like a bit spoiled about it. Like, but I went into that meeting. I obviously didn't cry because I wasn't allowed to. And then we walked out. And he's like, right, well, you go and prove him wrong now. Whereas if he was like, oh, you should have got that, and
blaming them,
blaming them, then you can go the other way. And I think parents sometimes. There's a fine line really on how you treat your kid.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like obviously, my dad passed away growing up, so I didn't have dad. So my mum was trying to take on that role as well and trying to enforce masculinity in me. I know that's a sensitive topic these days, but I remember I got it was a cold night when I was like 12. I got tackled and I fell and slapped my head on the ground and bawled my eyes out. I'll never forget. It was in Canberra, and Mum pulled me aside and she's like, stop crying. And I was going through puberty at the time, so it was like high emotions, and I'll never forget that. We laugh about it now. She's like, well, look at you now. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But those are the times where she was hard on me, where she's just like, you gotta just sometimes suck it up. And
couldn't handle seeing a 6'3", 12-year-old saying
pretty much. And that was the thing, right? It was hard because I looked so much older than what I was. So it's this big lug with a little squeaky voice.
Nothing's changed. So then obviously you all those ups and downs, and still you had the opportunity to go over to the UK, back over to the UK in England. So how did that come about?
So this is, again, everything in my life seems to be either luck or timing and then capitalizing on it. So this thing popped up. It was like a day event thing that you had to pay for, so $500. I could just see the writing on the wall that it was a scam or something. It was like, it was almost like, you know, when those coaches come on for England and they're throwing Chelsea. Come from Chelsea. You know what I mean? You've gone and watched them play once. You've never. That's what it seemed like. And Mum was like, look, I'll just do it because what other opportunities have we got right now? Like, there's nothing, right? Just do it, see what happens, you never know. So we went, it was at Royal Pines. I remember I took the day off school, and it was like a last minute thing. And he was like, go down there, don't really care. I had a stinker. Like, I was getting ripped in shreds by this. I was 16 at the time, by like a 13-year-old, this little Brazilian. Just, I'm trying to turn, whatever. Anyways, after it, we had to wait, and they took us in individually, and I remember him going in, he goes, man, there's something different, whatever. It's good to, you know, what did he say? There's a sign of a good defender is he never gets his shorts dirty. I'm thinking, man, I didn't even get close enough to slide tackle, you know what I mean? Anyways, we're a bit iffy about it. Get a call a couple of days later, these two guys want to meet us for dinner. So me and Mum go meet them. They go, yeah, look, out of everyone there on the trial day, there was like 25 kids. You know, you're the special one. We're going to send you over. We'll send you to Stoke. They're not like, we're not going to send anyone over but you. And the other man, like, it just doesn't sound right. Like, it just sounds, there's something wrong. And she goes, just get over there and then see what happened. So I pulled out of school. I had 3 months left of year 12 and just decided, all right, I'm just going to pull out and we'll go. But she had to spend a lot of money. Like, Mum had to take out a loan. We didn't have a lot of money. She had to work a second job to pay that off. It ended up probably being a $10,000 to $15,000 investment from her all up to send me over there, which is a huge amount of money on a risk. Anyways, I get there. I land in Stoke.
Stoke. From the Gold Coast to Stoke.
To Stoke. Getting ready for training the next day. I'm nervous. Get down to this Sunday league pitch, thinking I'm going to the academy. And there's 8 players there from that training day on the Gold Coast. And I'm just going, all this, and I'm like, what, like, how do you get away with this? Like, just tell me the truth that, hey, we're taking your money, we're going to send you over, but this is what's going to happen. And then at least we can make the decision then. But from then I was off it, and then we're put in this environment where, you know, we didn't even have pumped up balls or flat balls.
So you thought you were going to Stoke Academy?
Yeah,
you ended up in
I ended up in Stoke, but in a field somewhere. And to be fair, there was one, like, we were playing games against these other teams that were put together. Like, there was a team called the Galacticos from Liverpool.
Oh, really? I didn't know they are. They all have their own names.
Yeah, it's weird as, man. They're like called Gucci or whatever. I couldn't.
I know they are.
That whole concept was
I've played
weird
against them too,
I remember playing them like a few times. We played us, and to be fair, the academy manager from Stoke came down once. But I think to myself, okay, there was an opportunity for me to be seen then and then get brought into the Stoke Academy, but how do you stand out around like bad players in a bad environment. You can only be so good, right? So I struggled in those games, and all the players were 14, I was 16, twice the size. I'm not going to tackle them hard. I'm not going to go through them. You know, so it was a bad setup. And I knew that I was never going to get an opportunity to go to trial at Stoke after that. But it was an eye-opener anyway from the start. I just got lucky that the family that I was living with, the father was the head of recruitment at Stoke. He'd been a scout for years at Bristol.
Right, yeah.
His son played in the under-18s at Stoke. His other son played at Chelsea, was a protege. He knew everyone around the country. So if I wasn't lucky enough to be put with him, I would have stayed in Stoke for 6 months and come back home. Yeah. But he sent me out on trial around the country. And that's when I got my break.
And where was that?
So I started I went down to Southend. So they were in League 2 at the time, a long way from Stoke. That's like a train to London, another train to Essex. And
were you still living in Stoke?
Yeah, and then another train to Southend. I remember I didn't want to spend any like mum's money that she was sending over because she needed it. I had this suitcase from Kmart and it was like 35 kilos because it was everything I had in there. And I decided instead of paying £10 to get the taxi from the train station to the training ground, I decided to walk. And this is a true story. I remember I'm walking and then the wheels break. I'm going, no. Then I pick up the thing. I'm a big lad at that time, I can carry it, it's fine. Handle breaks and then the zipper falls in half.
No.
The suitcase just rips open on the ground on the side of the street. I'm 16 in the middle of nowhere, man's asleep because it's 3 a.m. I'm like crying a little bit, but not like the tears. And I just packed it all in and I had to just hold it like that, and I walked 10 kilometers, I swear to God, like that to the training ground. I finally get there an hour later, like, why didn't you just call us? I didn't have the number. Threw the stuff down. And that was the start of it. And then I was there for a week. Really good dressing room, like the lads were awesome. They took me in straight away. I was a bit uncomfortable there because it was so far away. I was a bit homesick. Trained really well. The academy manager pulled me in at the end of it, and he just said, look, in a nice way, we don't really have a position for him. I was good enough, but I wasn't better than what they already had. And plus for a team that didn't have much finances, to bring a player from Australia, got to put them in digs, like costs a lot more money. So if you're not better than what they have, they're not going to take you in. And I also look at the end of the day, if I was anything special, they would have moved heaven and earth to so I was there, but probably not quite there. Then I came back to Stoke. I was disappointed.
Want to get rid of you?
Yeah, I'm sorry, mate. He's like, all good. Send me to Port Vale the next week. That place is like, that's the worst memories of my life.
I've been there a few times to play against them.
Gloomy. Like, it was just dark for 2 weeks, and their training grounds at the stadium. Dressing room, everyone hated me. No one wanted to talk to me from the start. So that was just disaster. And I remember, like, Kev kept saying, oh, I'm talking to Southampton, you might go down just for a trial. So I'm thinking like, I'm going to go to Southampton. Yeah, so I'm just like, you're below me.
Big one,
but I didn't say anything, but that's in my head. And then I'm just having training session, like I'm playing okay, not doing too bad. We played that weekend against Bury at home, and we drew. And they see something, they're like, oh, we need you for another week. We want to just see how you go. Play another week, and I'm hating it at this point. No one's talking to me. They all hate me. Like, it just, place just sucked. Like, I hated it. It's pissing down rain. And then we get to the game, and it's away at Bury, but at their old training ground, not the one, because they took over Man City's. Or the England's old training ground, wasn't it?
I think it was Man United.
Man City's.
No,
it was Man City's.
City's old,
they took over Man City's. Was before that, and I swear to you, it was mud, like up to my ankles, raining sideways. Like when you think of the old like English football, like that's what it was. We're getting pumped. It's 4-0 at half time. Everyone's like, it's my fault. Like it's the defender's fault. To be fair, everyone in the team was having a stinker, and the manager like pulled me aside. And he's like, I know it's tough. Like everyone's playing shit, you included, but it's okay. Go out there and just do the simple things. You'll be fine. There's a whistle. Header comes off my head. Corner. Ball comes in. I go to smack it clear off my shin into my own top corner.
No.
A minute later, they pull me off. They didn't say anything to me. so 2 minutes into the second half, and he's a centre back, and you're getting subbed, you know, something like.
Writings on the walls.
I walked down the line and started crying, couldn't let it out. Because no one was talking to me still, and I could see parents looking, I didn't care. I had to get showered then at the end of the game in those old baths. You know, the baths, just the bath in the middle.
Freezing cold.
Yeah, free. I just remember just sitting in the bus. It was just a real like as a 16-year-old on your own. Again, it's 3 a.m. over here. No one's speaking to you. Like I couldn't speak to anyone. Then they pulled me into their office. The academy manager did. It was under 18s coach. He was trying to be nice, but he genuinely, I swear to God, he just said, look, I think you should go back to Australia. You're not going to get a team in England.
Wow.
I said, no, I'm going to trial next week, so don't bother.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you reckon?
And he's trying to be nice about it, but like that was, like I was shocked that I heard that. Then he tried to offer me a lift home. No, mate, I'm all good.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got back that day because it was like half an hour. I remember getting back and then just like walking in, didn't speak to anyone. I locked myself in my room and I was bawling my eyes out. And then I remember like one of the kids that like one of the sons that lived in the house, he was like 12, 13, I think he was playing up or acting up, and they could hear me like wailing. I remember the mum like losing her shit at the kid.
Really?
He was being cocky and he's from a fucking Australian, like he's up there, he's just been told he's like whatever, like he was at Stoke Academy at the time, like you've got it all, like you need to take it more serious. That was probably the lowest point in my life at that point. I just wanted to come home, I was over it. And then the flight was booked to come home, and then the opportunity came to trial Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and at that point I didn't care, like I was over it, that was a week on. And again, the care went. I was playing for fun, the fear of coming back and having to face, I didn't make it, was gone. And played for that kind of pieced together team again, the Stoke development team, against Kidderminster.
Yeah.
You know Kidderminster?
Scotland,
yeah, played against them.
Where?
No, not Scotland. No, they're outside Stoke. No.
Midlands.
Yeah, Kidderminster Harriers. Yeah. I was going to say in Scotland. I said yes. No, I played against them one night, and the night before I went, and I was like David Luiz. I batted blind, like it was like. I'm like, oh.
Were you playing against the 13-year-olds again?
No, they're men. And I remember because I part of left down the story, I was intermittently during that period at Stoke for 4 months going and training with them and playing with them, and they were like, what would they have been at the time?
They were probably Premiership, weren't they?
Yeah, the 10 men. Because one of the lads that played in there was coaching us. He was coach for Stoke, and he was helping out with us. He was probably getting paid a bit to just do us on the side, and he was playing with them. And I remember just having, Kev was like, huh? What was that? Anyways, got on the train the next morning, almost missed it to Sheffield, pulled up, got there, it was sunny. Just had a really good feeling about being there. Went into the training ground, and what it was they had this team that was put together in London of all unsigned boys from London, and they came up, and then they put together another team to play against them. And I got lucky enough to land, again, luck, got put in the team to play against them. So it was a mixture of some of the boys that were in the under 21s at the time, because it was only 5.
Sheffield.
Yeah, Jared Cole was one of them.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he didn't play this game. So my team was like a strong team. I was surrounded by good players. The keeper was Cameron Dawson, he's still playing now. The centre back that was with me was on trial with the first team from Club Bruges. He played a Champions League game 3 months ago. So I've gone from like that in Port Vale to then playing, still, he was only 19 and I was 16, so he's still within that age. So I'm with good players, and I had the best game I've ever played in my life.
Wow. And
Dean Ramsdale, I think I don't know if he still works for them, but he was head of recruitment or development now for City Group, Man City. He was at Preston North End, he'd just taken over as academy manager at Sheffield Wednesday 2 months before. He came up to me, he's like, if bring you back on trial, you train like that, I'm going to sign you. I'm like, okay, I've just been told like 2 weeks ago I need to go home. So anyway, the next week they brought me in, and after 2 days they offered me a scholarship. So 2 years two-year contract with under 18s. There's a whole lot of rigmarole and difficulty around clearance and stuff like that. But that's kind of long and the short of it.
Yeah.
So
after all the ups and downs, and it was all made worthwhile.
Yeah, like it's weird how it all came together, and all of that needed to happen for me to end up at Wednesday and end up being there for a year and a half. And although that was really hard in its own right, like the club was so good to me.
Have you ever crossed paths with that coach again who told you to go home?
No. Oh, I did with the team though.
Right.
Which was funny because Sheffield Wednesday were in the championship at the time,
Yeah.
and they were a Category 2 academy, because they're split like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
Well, they were at the time. That may have
Still
changed
is,
now.
I
Yeah.
think,
Port Vale were Category 3 and League 2 support
Yeah,
division.
yeah.
And we went to. Did you ever go to? You know, at the start of the year, you had to go to England training ground, and they did like almost like a career seminar thing. Did you ever go to that thing?
No.
All the clubs in like all the under 18 teams in England had to go. And we went, and I remember we were into tracksuit with the boys.
Yeah, looking the part.
We crossed them,
Yeah.
and they were all like, I heard them going,
Yeah.
and I just had this big smirk on my face, and then
I felt good.
I did. They did.
You in your tracksuit.
Yeah.
You still wear that now?
Yeah, I do. I
That
sleep
big
in
Sheffield
it.
Wednesday
Yeah,
jacket.
I do. Mel's got that now.
That hung around for a while, didn't it?
Yeah.
But in general, we come across lots of good kids here, as I said, that with aspirations of going back to the UK, and
Yeah.
they probably see the Premiership on TV and the bright lights and things, but the 2 or 3 teams you mentioned, some people here probably never even heard of.
Yeah.
And what was it? What you thought it would be over there, and how were you perceived? Although you're Irish, but how were you perceived coming from England? So I think there's definitely coming from Australia. Sorry,
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a stigma. At least when I was there, of, Australians coming over, that it's not really a football country, and I don't think that they particularly get the respect that lads from Spain or France might get.
And I felt that quick, and that's when I turned Irish again.
No.
Yeah, and it was something I had to do. Like I was like, no, I'm Irish. Like I had to, because I felt that immediately.
Yeah.
And I got a lot more respect being Irish than I did Australian, until I went to Sheffield Wednesday. And again, there was a bit of luck because Jared Cole was there, and he'd just been given his first year pro.
Yeah.
And then Matthew Fletcher was there. I think he still plays for Central Coast.
Right.
Or he did play for Central Coast. So there were 2 Aussies there at that point. There were also a couple of that club, for whatever reason, had a few. But you're definitely right. There's a perception that it's not. I'm just lucky because I've always been big, and I remember, and that's a factor because no one really did too much to me. I remember the trial I had at Sheffield Wednesday when I had no care in the world. The first training session, I was dictating. I was yelling at players.
Yeah.
Someone, Roy, we laughed about today. Roy Redonja was his name. He's from Slovenia, I think. This guy did not care about anything in the world. Like, he used to stuff Mars bars in his socks so he could eat during training. So, we were playing we're in a box possession, and instead of passing to me, he tried to make someone, and he makes someone, and he laughed. And then I just lost my head at him because he didn't pass at me, and then I got this instant respect from the team. But I remember a couple months later, I was already then established, I knew I was getting signed. This lad came from Canada to trial, and on his first session, Wale, who was my housemate, he's from London, he just sent him into the side of the dome, the indoor dome. He broke his arm, and he was on the ground, broken arm, and I remember this was just, I had nothing to do with it, but one of the other lads came over and goes, that'd be you if you weren't big. I was like, okay, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
So there's actually a story about Jared doing something like going through someone in a hard tackle or something. Really, you're behind the ball, you really got to prove yourself when you get over there. And that'll even be in the top tier, you're taking someone's spot. They're not going to be your mate. And I look back and I realise now, because they've got a lot riding on it. They've done it their whole life, and you're coming in and you're going to take food off their plate.
Yeah. So. And even though that coach obviously was quite brutal and blunt, what he said to you about you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you didn't make it to pro level. Do you, in some ways, respect that he was upfront and honest with you, or do you think that it was sort of just a little bit too early in your career to make that judgment?
I understand where he was coming from, because from what all he saw, I wasn't good enough. And I'm probably, when you look at what I did, I was probably someone that overachieved, really. Based because I've never been the best technically. I've always had the heart, I've always had the drive, I've always had the competitiveness, the willingness to win. and I've always been able to come out with something that you go, has he done that? But technique wise, I'd never been taught growing up, so I never had that part of my game. Long range passing, so like I was learning how to try and ping a ball when I was 16 in England, too far behind. So I understand where he was coming from because that's all he saw. And sometimes you do need to be told the truth, and then you have a decision to make. Right? Okay, I'm either going to go away and work on it, or I'm not. And I went away and I tried to work on the things that I wasn't good at, heading and passing. And there was a point where my passing got really, really good, but the heading side of things was a hard thing to practice because no one wanted to ping balls to me for me to just lose my brain cells. So that was quite difficult. So.
Yeah, and then obviously I met you when you were 18. You'd just come back from Sheffield Wednesday, and you came to join us at Palm Beach, and we had quite an experienced team at the time. And I remember your first couple of training sessions. One thing that did stand out to me was your determination. That you weren't a timid little 18-year-old. Do you think that all of those ups and downs and experiences helped with that, or is that something that you feel is naturally ingrained into you, that determination, that will to win, and just basically being prepared to put yourself out there?
I think then the will to win's always been, like I've always talked to Mum about it, it's like I've always wanted to, you've been competitive and always needed to win, even as a kid. Like I'd cry when I was 5 or 6 or 7 when we didn't win. I'd get in fights at school if we'd lose with my teammates because they didn't try hard enough. Like that's how bad I wanted it all my life. So I guess I'm like that side of things, you've either got it or you don't. And you can't just, I do it in training. Like I still, me and Nico would joke about it, like if we get a good player on our team, like I don't want him because like this don't mean nothing to him. I needed to win everything, even in training. So I've been lucky with that. But then the trials and tribulations, that probably made me more of a man, and then having the confidence to then couple that with the willingness to win and just having not care what people thought. But that time you met me was probably the lowest point I've been in my life because I hated football. It was that, and that's the struggles I had back in England when it became a job and I was getting paid and there was pressure and I couldn't stand it. I wasn't good enough. Like maybe there was a point where I was getting good enough technically, but I didn't have what it took up here, and you need the entirety, right? You need the full package, and it took a long time for me to start enjoying football again. Like I used to pray over there. I genuinely, I swear to you, I would sometimes I'd pray to my dad that the game would get cancelled. It got cancelled twice. I played Shanghai Shenhua under 21s. Got cancelled because there was ice on the pitch. Thanks, Pops. And then the other one, I was supposed to play for the under 21s at Hillsborough, and against Sheffield United. And there was a bomb scare. Someone dumped a fridge. Someone dumped a fridge in the river next to it, and a motor fell out. So just that's how bad.
You were
so nervous because Dean, he was really good to me, but he saw a lot of potential in me, and I was his first signing. He kind of took me under his wing, but then with that, I felt the pressure. I'm like,
have to do well because of him.
I felt like a fraud. Like I felt like he thought I was better than what I was. Like I didn't think I was good enough, even though he was saying I was. I just didn't think. So it was like
imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, and I was on borrowed time, and they're going to find me out sooner rather than later because I'd been told I wasn't good enough by the last team. No other team wanted to sign me. I got lucky because I played good. So there's going to be a point where the wheels fell off. And the wheels didn't fall off. Like for a year, I was doing really well. Then I came back here for 6 weeks, and I went back, and I just couldn't gain traction again, and I just hated football. I was having bad game after bad game after bad game, and I wanted to give up, wanted to quit. And I just unfortunately got around a really good group of lads, including yourself in 2014, and we did well that year, and I started enjoying it again.
Yeah, that enjoyment's massive. You see from your performances that year, you were enjoying it and playing well, and you're sort of reinvigorated, reinvented. I've seen a massive sort of improvement in your performance and just as a man. As I said, you came back and you were reasonably quiet at first, but you really came out of your shell. And I think you and Nico, you obviously teamed up well down the left-hand side. You had Christian and Carl Dodd next to you, obviously mentoring you through. Might have been hard at the time, but you did really well that season. We won the league, won the grand final, got to the quarters of the cup, and then I think you were ready then to kick on again. And then when that didn't happen, how did that feel?
Well, that's where it was hard for me because no one wanted to look at me coming back in Australia. So I had this perception I'm going to go to England, and I can have the A-League to fall back on. And I thought that the entire time. I should have had the burn the boats mentality.
Yeah.
I thought I'd easily have someone. Nobody wanted to look at. I was begging Roar to let me just train for free. No one wanted to look at me. I'd spent 4 or 5 days with the Australian under-20s in London on a training camp. Didn't do too well. I reckon that probably had part to do with it, because they probably call Paul Eoghan, who was the coach, probably call him, ask for what did you think of him then, and he probably told them. I actually think that did happen. Which is fair enough, whatever, but just give me a chance. And then when that didn't happen, I'm like, how? Like, I've just spent 2 years at an academy in England, like playing against strong teams like Leeds, Sheffield United.
Good level.
Yeah, surely just give me a look in, just for the youth team. Yeah. That's it. No one else, just the youth team. I don't even want to get paid. No one wanted to look at me.
Do you think it's because your playing style? Because you mentioned the Dutch style that's implemented, and you look at the Raw, for example, they're all very technical, similar players. You think that maybe you just didn't fit into that?
Oh, that was definitely the case before I left, and I think that was obviously the case coming back as well. I didn't like a centre back in Australia at the time, 5'8", 5'9". Never going to compete on an international level, you know what I mean? With the game is now, particularly with number 9s coming back in, like Nunes and Haaland. How are you supposed to go up against them?
Yeah.
But that was probably the hardest thing for me to come to terms with, was just not even being given a chance. Like, just one day in training. So we go, okay, we'll use the NPL as a year to be seen. Everyone was telling me to go to Olympic because they were the best at the time. So I went to Olympic, and it was this big thing. But I hated it there. No one liked me again. No one would talk to me. I was having to go from Brisbane every day. And I'm like, what's the point? Like, I hate football. Like,
why not enjoy it?
No, yeah, exactly. I've already met Justin at this point, and he spoke to Gray, and then I came down to Palm Beach. It was the best thing I did. Like, and Palm Beach at the time, with all due respect, like, it probably supposed to come last. Really.
Yeah, before I think we come 9th out of 12, we were a disgrace to have first year.
But I didn't care. I just wanted to play and have fun, like be with my mates, like Nico.
Yeah, we had a good bunch that year, didn't we?
And best thing I did, because then all of a sudden we ended up winning, and what happened. But I was lucky enough to come at the start.
Runs.
And enjoy my time there, because I just hated it at Olympic. It just wasn't. But anyways, had a good year, and thought at least we'd get a look in. I'm 18, playing the NPL, played every game. We won everything, did so well. Again, didn't even get a look in. Remember Gray saying, "Oh, they're going to try." I'm like, come on, Gray, do something. You probably watch this now. And they're saying about me, Nico, and Riley, because we're all 18. Call never came, so I ended up getting the coach's number. I called him, nervous as hell. He didn't even know who I was.
Really?
And then I get a text a day later going, "Hey, appreciate the call. He was nice about it, but we're not interested."
Wow.
Because you obviously have to go and find out who I was and talk, and then that's when I just kind of gave up all aspirations of. I was just deflated, and at that point, Mum was struggling money wise, and there was a lot of stuff going on. I'm like, I need to just figure out what I want to do with my life, and I fell into real estate then.
Yeah. I think even in the 8 or 9 years I've known you, I could definitely see a love-hate with you and football. And I think we all have it in different degrees, because when you came back, you were low, and then you went really high, and then because you were so young, you still wanted to make it, and I could see those downs that you would have, and you felt like the world was up against you, and you weren't getting recognised for the good work you were doing. I think even the few years that followed, you sort of up and down, weren't you? Sometimes you loved it, sometimes you hated it. As you said, you had other things going on.
I probably pulled out too early when I look back now. Like, I stopped really pursuing it at 19. Just had in my head, like, you've got to be. So I probably could have given it another crack for maybe 2 years. But I am glad at it from a point as well, because having the ability to say, okay, I'm not good enough now. I'm old. Like, there's players that are better than me coming through. If I make it, I'm maybe even going to get to the A-League. I don't know. I didn't want to be someone 27, 28. I've obviously dropped out of school, didn't go to uni. Didn't want to still be chasing it and then be left with nothing. Like, I needed to then build something in my life.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, since then, you've obviously established yourself as a really successful real estate agent, and you've obviously been in that industry for a few years now, and doing really well. Do you think any of your lessons you learned coming up through the footballing ranks, the ups and downs, and all the adversity you overcome has helped you in this new industry?
Well, I say to everyone like all the time, like I can tell in my office who grew up in a sporting environment and who didn't. Like in so many different aspects, and it shows. Like throughout, like I know 45, 50-year-olds that don't have the same kind of fortitude, testicular fortitude is what I would have, based off of what I've been through. Saying certain things that you would say, when you grow up in team environment, you say something stupid, you're gonna get rinsed for it. But they got no qualms about saying something like that. You know what I mean? There's so much to it, and I always say, like, if I have a son, a daughter, team sports, whatever, like I don't care what sport it is, but it's team sport, because there's so much that shapes you without even realizing it.
From it.
And just respect. The biggest thing for me was respect and knowing my position within an organisation. That's the problem I have now. I promise you, I'll show you my messages. I get messages 2-3 times a week. Young kids wanting to work for me. They see some, whatever, the glitz and glam of it.
They haven't seen
the problem with them, they have no respect. I sound like an old timer, but they don't. They've got no respect for their position within an organisation or work ethic. They think they can just walk in, or that they can come in and be in the same level as me. It's like, no, you start here. Here's the manager. You're down here. You got to work your way up. Here's the captain. You're here, etc.
So you can always relate it back to football.
And that is, there's so many, like they'll go to private schools, they'll be at TSS, whatever. They've been mollycoddled their whole life, and they won't make much of themselves moving forward because they haven't had to do it on their own, or they haven't been in an environment where they've been told no, or they've been told that they're not good enough.
Well, that's it. I think those lessons are huge, because you started Madrid-Bar, had various trials, got in, didn't get in, and then going overseas, being released from Sheffield Wednesday, coming back, not making it into professional, and then starting from the real bottom in real estate, because people probably look at you now and think, oh, he's doing really well, and see all your ads and things like that, but they don't see all of the hard work and all the obstacles you overcome to get to that point. I think that's something that stands out. You're only 26 still, and all of it you've achieved and overcome that people probably don't appreciate. And I guess the big thing is that determination and drive inbuilt, do you think, or is that something you've had to really work on?
It's inbuilt. The biggest thing, the difficulty I've always had is like being a dreamer and wanting more than normality. So it's actually getting focus and focusing on one thing and achieving that. That's what I've always struggled with, because it's like, okay, I want something, I'll go and get it, and then I'm like, oh, what's the next new shiny thing, and then I'll go for that. So having that with football was easy, because it was always, you hyper focus on one thing, and that's been difficult outside of that. But I've come, like last 3 years, been really able to kind of focus on one thing. But then the drive, determination, like it's, if you've either got it or you don't, you either want to win or you don't. But there's no excuse not to work hard.
And that's something that we talk about a lot, and I'm not sure 100% on the answer. You hear comments from spectators, parents and whatnot about a kid or a team. They need to work harder, they need to want to win, they need that winning mentality, as if it's something that we can just give them. But I personally don't think it's something that, no matter how much I tell you, you need to want to win, or you have to want to win this game, and you have to go and put your head in where it hurts and things, unless you've got something inside burning to do it. And I think, obviously people can help influence things, but I do think it comes from inside, really.
I'm on the fence with it, where that's why I asked about how was your mum with you, because half of me thinks it's built within you, half of me thinks it's from your parents in terms of working hard, wanting to win. I think the way you speak about your mum, she was very adamant that you need to work hard. Like, I'm not going to put my arm around you, sort of thing. I'm going to tell you when you're wrong. Whereas if you've never had that, I don't think you can have it in you to want to win and want to work hard.
And it's hard as well, because I'm sure you see a lot of players that probably aren't very gifted or talented. They're getting told that they're the best.
Exactly.
And that probably doesn't help either. Whereas maybe if they were told, hey, you need to work on this, and this, they might have actually been able to go on and achieve something more. But then you have players again that have everything.
But they just pop it off.
They don't do anything. They don't work. They don't care. They don't want to work hard. They'll fall off the cliff. So it's like, that's why there's so many intricate things that need to go right for you to make it in any sport. That's why so few of us do. Like out of that team, like let's say the 30, so out of the year below me, my year and the year above me at Sheffield, I was thinking about this morning, there's 35 players, there's only 5 still playing.
Exactly. Yeah.
4 of them are, 6. 4 of them are on the brink of non-league and league football, League 2 conference, and 2 of them are goalkeepers that are playing. So like that's, you know what I mean? Like it's not, the odds are slim.
Oh, it's slim at best. I think that's the biggest thing for me. That's why I asked you if you think that all of your footballing experience have helped you in real estate, because I definitely reflect on my time as an upcoming player in England and a failed sort of professional, that I think it's stood me in good stead for the second part of my life, you know, professionally, because I've learned so many lessons of you know, about myself that's enabled me to improve in the industry that I'm in now. I think that's the biggest message that we try and give to the young players that we coach, is that yes, you can want to be a player, but there's a bigger picture to it all. And if you have the values of, you know, working hard each and every day, every training session, every game, and, you know, respecting teammates, colleagues, coaches, that regardless of whether you make it or not, whatever the next step for you is, that you're going to be in a good position. Like you said, in the office environment, you're able to handle yourself around others, whereas other people that haven't been in that team environment, they're probably a little bit more self-centered. They're unaware of their colleagues, other people. So there's such a bigger picture to football and the growth that comes with coming through the ranks. I think so many lessons to be learned.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have had it the whole way through, everything from start to finish.
Yeah, and I think like when you came in as an 18-year-old and you come from overseas, you had Dodzy and Christian playing right next to you, and I think you were always very respectful of them. And I think you're quite strong-minded. Even back then, you had your opinions, but when they told you something even greater, I think you were receptive to it. And I think that's why you did improve quickly through that season.
And I was just thinking about that growing up, I'd always be told, he's coachable. He's coachable. I'm like, what does that mean? I never knew what that meant, but all it is being responsive to a coach. They tell you to do something, you do it. Whether you think it's the right thing to do or not, you do it. You don't talk back. So same with player. Like there was plenty of times with Reza and Dodgy, I just want to tell them exactly how I felt. But now, like they've done a lot more than I ever would have in football. Respect them, do it, and then keep your opinions or tell someone else after.
So that's it. And obviously, moving on to a different chapter in your life that we'll touch on quickly. And out of our 400 YouTube subscribers, if you might have seen, recognise you and think, where from? You obviously had a stint on Love Island a couple of years ago. Again, did anything from your footballing background help you when you went into that sort of pressure cooker?
Yeah, probably just being, again, it was another kind of that crossroads from boy to a man. I know it's a cliche, but I left a kid to England, came back a man. My mum says the same. I came back a man. There's no, like, I look at 18-year-olds and it was completely different, but that's because I had to go through all of that, and what I went through in Ireland as well probably helped that. But then again, with that Love Island, like I was going on my own. We're cut off from the world, so I actually they took my phone. I had no way to contact my mum, like my comfort. So I was in it on my own, and it was just all of those trials and tribulations, all those knockbacks, totally not good enough, being on my own. Like I was fine in that environment. Nothing fazed me. Just obviously things that went on in the pressure cooker on the show, and part of like me, you know that ain't me, never was me. So me just going in that environment, but you know what I mean, like that. Just that side of stuff, like I felt like a fish out of water and almost had to just fake it through to kind of get through it. But yeah, that's kind of had its shaped me as well. But I had to do it because I tore my hamstrings that year, didn't I?
Is that your reason for doing it?
Yeah, tore both my hamstrings, so I had to go.
Well, so. Christian was telling you for 3 or 4 years you needed to stretch them.
It's funny because I'd start, don't take this seriously, but as soon as I started focusing on my health and stretching, that's when I tore them. That's what I told him. Yeah, it's his fault. I actually told him, I started stretching and look what happened.
You did have the tightest hamstrings for an 18-year-old I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm fast over 100 metres, so when I get going.
It's all that counts in football, isn't it? 100 metres.
Not the couple metres, just when I make a mistake running back.
So yeah, you're obviously not playing now because you're busy with work and everything. Do you think we'll see you back on the pitch?
I miss it all the time, but I can't. I hate training. I hate training now. I can't. Like, it's just the thought of having to go now, 2, 3, 4 times a week, and then I just can't with work. It's hard. If we did it in the morning, I'd be able to. Yeah. I'd like doing it, but it's just difficult with that. And it actually I'm quite zen now these days. It makes me angry at playing football because
you still have that passion.
I do. I've got it. It's there. I always want to play. Like, even I was just back in Ireland not long ago, and I went across the road and was playing with all the kids that were in the neighborhood, like on the court I used to play, and like I just, oh man, I want to do this. You know what I mean? But then I'll get back and I'll get a taste of it, and I'm like, ooh.
I'm 26. Outsider, it sounds like you miss it.
I do. Yeah, I'm 26. I got a couple of years left.
He plays in the Burley Summer League, didn't he, last year? The year before, and
yeah, got over him just skying it every time.
Yeah, on his phone.
Yeah, you got plenty of time left. 20. You're coming into your prime, even though
10 years.
Yeah,
a few years left.
Yeah, I could. We'll see. Ray stopped calling me, so.
Change your number.
Yeah.
You're always a wanted man. Come the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, they're struggling. They're calling me. I haven't played in 3 years.
Yeah, that's it. So last question, I guess. Footballing wise, is there anything that you would change now from your career?
I probably wish I went. So just for me personally, I wish I had the opportunity to go to England sooner. I think if I went in that year that I was 14, 15, when I grew, I was bigger than everyone, I was fast, I was playing really, like I was, at that time, one of the best in the state. That's the time I wish I went, because it would have given me 2 years in England, because the calendar works different. When I'm born later in the year, so I'm essentially the year younger. I had an advantage there. I wish I went probably, so I had a couple of years in an under-16 team over there, then to go into the youth team. Maybe man might have moved over. You know what I mean? That's probably the only thing I look at and go, I wish I did that. And then also probably I finished too soon. Even though things have gone well for me now, I hung the boots up in pursuing it too soon. Because even though I still played on for a few years after 2014, you know yourself, I enjoyed food a little bit too much.
And you had a few Guinnesses back at that time.
I was out of shape, and I just lost ambition. But if I kept it for maybe a couple of years, who knows? But other than that, it is what it is. Everything for a reason.
That back pass at Morton Bay was the in the coffin, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Remember, we were going to win the league that year.
I redeemed. Oh, you're going to put it on?
Yeah, we'll put it on.
I put on the game the next week. I redeemed myself at the FA Cup.
We had the FA Cup, another title.
Yeah, but I faced adversity.
You did.
I came back 3 days later against the same team. Big crowd. Had a good game.
Bigger men would have prayed that game was off.
Yeah. Lesser men.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.